We bring it to you
from Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria,
giving you all sides and political stories round the clock.
Every detail from the start line to the final whistle.
CoreTV News, expanding your view.
Thank you for joining us on CoreTV News at 7. I am Frank Malapia here as some of the stories filing in at this hour. In spite of Nigeria's success in treating Ebola patients, health authorities say the country has not totally eliminated the disease. Health Minister Onyebuchi Chukwu says the country remains at risk for as long as there is free cross-border movement. The minister who spoke with State House correspondent after the Federal Executive Council meeting insists that there is no need to close Nigeria's borders because of the Ebola virus.
We only stop being at risk when the very last case of Ebola viral disease under this current epidemic has gone. But please, let's educate our people, because I heard that even some people now, since this morning, have been holding parties. The party should be suspended. Please, we still have a case in Nigeria, and it may still be possible. It's still possible that we can still have 1, 2, or 3 more cases before we stop having cases, because there are people under surveillance. So if we are sure there's no more problem, there will be no need to put them under surveillance. It's because there's still that chance that one of them may become sick. We test, it becomes positive, and I will still announce it. So we've done well on containment, but by no means have we eliminated the problem in Nigeria. It's just that Nigeria has a success story to tell the rest of the world. But let's also balance. We shouldn't go into panic, but we shouldn't go into euphoria, just to maintain that balanced, study, disciplined mien and comportment. That is what is required of Nigeria. We are doing well, but it's not over. The problem is not over.
The Nigerian authorities have shifted the resumption date for all public and private schools nationwide to Monday, October 13. This is to ensure that adequate preventive measures on Ebola are put in place before schools reopen. This was the outcome of a light meeting involving Education Minister Ibrahim Shekarau and State Commissioners of Education in Abuja.
It is an unusual meeting with one agenda: how to prevent the spread of Ebola virus in schools. Education Minister Ibrahim Shekarau presided over the meeting that had all state commissioners of education in attendance.
The Ebola matter, the apprehension, the concern of the community, the parents, and all those of us in the education industry. The well-being of the children that are placed in trust in our hands. And we have the moral responsibility to ensure that before recalling these children, we put in place measures that will assure parents that there is safety, and we allay the fears of the parents.
Nigeria's health authorities were also on hand to pass down tips on preventing Ebola to Education Ministry officials.
First assignment is to come up with a policy statement. We, the education sector of Nigeria, have declared Ebola an important emergency disease and therefore are taking extraordinary actions as follows: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is the epidemic. That is the red alert. Anybody making reference will refer to those policy statements. If we are going to say our marker is temperature, and the Honorable Minister of Education approves for you, every state is going to acquire this, every school is going to have a handheld thermometer. With this, you do not need to touch a person and take their temperature.
Afterwards, the officials began a closed-door session lasting several hours, where a number of decisions were taken. Schools across the country were to resume in September, but now they will remain shut till October.
All primary and secondary schools, both public and private throughout the Federation, are to remain closed until Monday, the 13th of October 2014, which is the new school resumption date for all schools throughout the Federation. This is to ensure that adequate preventive measures are put in place before the students report back to school. All state ministries of education are to immediately organize and ensure that at least 2 staff in each school, both public and private, are trained by appropriate health workers on how to handle any suspected case of Ebola, and also embark on immediate sensitization of all teaching and non-teaching staff in all schools on preventive measures. This training of the 2 staff must be concluded not later than the 15th of September 2014.
In addition, the state governments are to ensure that all public and private schools put some measures in place before resumption.
All primary and secondary schools, both public and private, should be provided with a minimum of 2 blood pressure measuring equipment by the state ministries of education. The state ministries should determine the number of such equipments required and forward same to the Federal Ministry of Education not later than 1st September 2014. The Federal Ministry of Education will liaise with the Federal Ministry of Health to ensure that the appropriate equipments are procured.
Nigeria's education authorities are prepared to sanction any school administrator that disregards the directive on new resumption date. They also plan to meet again on September 23rd to review the situation in all the states of the Federation.
The Lagos state government has again provided status update on efforts aimed at curtailing the dreaded Ebola virus disease. The State Ministry of Health reiterates the collaborative containment and case management effort of the state and federal government at a meeting with journalists in Lagos. Anita Fatiji has details in this report.
Lagos State Commissioner for Health, Jude Idris, says distortion of facts and outright falsehood being spread on the social media has been a major challenge, creating unnecessary and unavoidable anxiety and worries within the polity.
A critical and pervading challenge is the issue of rumors and false stories being disseminated, especially via the social media. These continue to create unnecessary and unavoidable anxiety and worries within the polity. They have the capacity to undermine the efforts being made to contain and manage this outbreak, as those who ought to present themselves for treatment may get discouraged. Malign government in the face of residents and fierce stigmatization of individuals and businesses.
321 contacts, according to him, have been screened and tracked, with 159 others discharged on completion of the 21-day surveillance.
Cumulatively, there are 13 confirmed, including an imported case and 1 suspected case. The suspect case is awaiting confirmatory test results to inform the next line of action. Currently, there are only 2 cases, 1 confirmed, 1 suspected, in isolation at our treatment facility in Mainland Hospital, Yaba.
He, however, emphasized that there is a need to report every death and obtain Ebola-free documentation to facilitate the transportation of outbound corpses from the state.
Under these circumstances, there is a need to report every death and obtain Ebola-free documentation to facilitate the transportation of outbound corpses from the state. Those deaths have genuine documentation, proper death certificates. They need to be given some kind of documentation here for them to allow them to move out of state for burial to other states.
The commissioner warns the public not to stigmatize all cases and contacts that have been given a clear bill of health and urges them to facilitate their reintegration into the society. Anita Fatunji, CoreTV News, Lagos.
The deteriorating security situation in the country, which has pitted the Nigerian military with insurgents, especially members of the dreaded Boko Haram, has remained a cause for concern. Guest analysts at the Wednesday's edition of Core Digest, CoreTV News flagship breakfast show described the development as a critical ailment in need of an urgent solution. One of the analysts, who is a retired Army Colonel, Adetu Jaja, traced the origin of the rot in the system to the administration of former military president Ibrahim Babangida.
It's a misnomer. It's abnormal. One of my subordinate officers, a general retired, called me. He was so exasperated. He said, "Oga, what are we people doing? Can't we help these people to solve this problem?" Believe me, when we were in service, when we were moved to southern Lebanon, you know, I was a company commander. My soldier look here and there. They threw away the bulletproof jacket. There's a banner, so what they do with it. They threw away the bulletproof jacket. They couldn't wear bullet. They put on their uniform, and they were going on patrols at night. They were chasing. They confronted Israeli Defense Force, confronted PLO, this same Nigerian army that defended the territorial integrity of Kenya during the colonial time, that defeated the Italian army in Ethiopia and hosted the British flag on the Italian position. If today it would have been Nigerian flag. But you find that the decay in the military started in the last phase of our respected general's rulership, General Babangida, and it totally went worse during the Abacha regime, when the only thing there was tenure survivor of the Kube military administration was the security system being developed.
For his part, legal practitioner and human rights campaigner Malaki Gumadu says the situation could snowball into anarchy if treated with a kid glove.
It's in the hands of its cohesive apparatus, i.e. the military, inclusive. And you're already talking of a decay in that institution. You are as well talking about the last bus stop before anarchy. To have that against the backdrop of the general decay in other institutions of government is to cut for serious trouble. And I'm not trying to sound alarmist here.
The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation is soliciting the assistance of the police in protecting its pipelines and checking the thefts of crude oil. An NPC Group Managing Director, Joseph Doha, made the request where he visited the Acting Inspector General Police, Suleiman Abba. Police spokesman Emmanuel Chiku says in a statement that Doha also solicited assistance for the protection of his top management staff. Abba, in his response, assured to the NNPC leadership of the police readiness to give maximum protection to oil facilities and other critical national infrastructure. You're watching CoreTV News at 7. We'll take a short break. We'll be back with more stories after this time out. Stay with us.
This is Lagos. This is our city. You know that our city needs heroes. Yeah, yeah. Our future is in our hands. The spirit of Lagos. A city that is strong in value. A Lagos that is filled with heroes. With neighbors that care for each other. This is Lagos. This is our city. Our city needs heroes. Our future is in our hands. The spirit of Lagos. I need you. You need me. Together, we're the spirit of Lagos.
It's your CoreTV News at 7. All activities to mark the 23rd anniversary of the creation of Osun State was suspended as every attention is shifted to the Election Petition Tribunal, which is entertaining the People's Democratic Party's challenge of the result of the just concluded governorship election in the state. The battle started with main gladiators in the election, the PDP and the APC, filing an application for leave to access and inspect all materials used by the Independent National Electoral Commission for the conduct of the August 9th governorship poll. Rashid was at the election tribunal sitting in Oshogo and filing this report.
The August 9th election in Osun State was mainly a battle between the candidates of the People's Democratic Party, Iyola Omishore, and that of the All Progressives Congress and incumbent governor, Rauf Aregbesola. As the result was announced, Iyola Omishore vows to challenge the result at the election tribunal. The lead counsel for Iyola Omishore, Afolabi Fashanu, and Wale Afolabi, standing for Rauf Aregbesola, sought the leave of the courts to inspect the ballot materials used for the August 9th election.
We came to seek leave of court for the purpose of examining electoral materials that were used during the last election.
That they could not, by any stretch of imagination, have that kind of number of votes that they have. So we want to inspect all those materials, the ballot papers used, all the electoral materials used. We'll be able to defend in our petition.
The court premises was filled to the brim with supporters of the PDP. The reason for this? Not far-fetched. Iyola Omishore was in court and speaks with journalists on the alleged election manipulation of the APC.
The PDP is here to challenge the result of the rigged election. And you can see that that's the only thing that's saving the peace in this state. So we will now expose the massive rigging, malpractices, ballot stuffing, and ballot manipulation and carriage of ballot boxes to the public to see that APC has no place in this state.
As the battle leaves the streets for the courtroom, both counsels speak of their expectations when petition is finally submitted and sitting starts.
After that, we will assist you to know where things went wrong, particularly from the side of either INEC or APC. So to foster at least our chance.
When they fight the election petition properly before the court, we are going to meet them paragraph by paragraph, word for word. We are ready for them.
Omishore, however, admonishes his supporters and party faithfuls to be calm as they are coasting to victory.
We believe that the will of people must triumph over the rigging of the people of PPC. And sincerely, this court will determine the actual winner of the 9th of August elections peacefully and in a more civilized environment, unlike the thuggery and violence being perpetrated or created by APC.
The tribunal awaits the petition of both parties as they might have concluded the inspection of the election material. Rashid, CoreTV News, Oshogo.
The Osun State government is fully in support of the class action filed by about 700 members of the All Progressives Congress against security agencies over alleged arrest and detention during the recent election. Senior Special Assistant to the Governor on Research, Planning and Policy Implementation, Olusegun Bada, stated this in an interview with CoreTV News in Abuja. He argued that only people on ground can fully understand the manner APC members were treated by security operatives before and during the election.
If we don't go to court, some other citizens, civil society organizations will go to court. People were traumatized. Senator Adeleke did not run away, escape from his house. He has to sleep in his grandmother's house. It was essentially defense because of the militarization. That's one. Mr. Fakurede from Ora, an elder statesman who is about 80 years old, he's a lawyer. He was driven and incarcerated, manhandled. There were so many of our friends who were beaten till, like even Lai Mohammed. You see, intimidation itself is a psychological thing. And if you distort somebody's psycho, in psychoanalytical theory, it's more damaging than physical damage. So 40 billion, I even believe, is even too small. It was a terrible scenario. You need to be on ground. It's rather seen than just being, than you hearing about it. We were on ground. They were bragging. They were not ready to do elections. But the people, it was the will of the people, the resolve of the people that, look, this election must hold and our votes must count.
Away from that now, the Nigerian Society of Engineers is concerned that over 60% of its members are unemployed. Chairman of the Abuja chapter of the group says available vacancies for engineers are far below the number of engineers in the labor market. But guest speaker at the 2014 Engineering Week in Abuja, Umar Obinde, wants young engineers to be creative in order to cut down the number of unemployed engineers in the country.
To me, as a specialist in science, technology, and engineering, local content is about knowledge. You have knowledge, you can be able to penetrate anything. And therefore, the local content drive must also recognize that the education system in Nigeria needs to be energized to enhance the local content effectiveness. So we must, in the next 10, 15, 20 years, start producing world-class scientists. We must be able to start coming up with intellectual property that is globally licensable. We must start looking at the potential and the opportunities to evolve Nigerian-made products, engineering products that Japanese can buy, that the Europeans can buy. This is the ultimate value, and therefore I believe in this, and I know that it's achievable.
If you are a graduate, you are just a raw material. You can choose a career, not necessarily going through government, a white-collar job, so to say. But as engineers, we on our various fields, we can create job for ourselves and for others. And this has been my mission since I became the chairman of NSC Abuja branch. And look through our records. Every time we come to our meeting, 50, 60 new members, mostly young engineers come. We discover that 90% of them are unemployed.
Determined to nip in the bud the premature death from mishandled chemicals, the Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, LASEPA, has commenced a 2-day workshop for large-scale chemical dealers. This is in order to educate on effective management of chemicals in the state. Anita Fatiji has more in this report.
Towards effective monitoring and compliance of chemical management in Lagos State is the theme of this year's 2-day workshop organized by the Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, LASEPA. The General Manager of LASEPA, Rashid Shabi, says the agency will not fold its arms and watch misapplication of chemicals. Rather, will continue to sensitize chemical dealers on how to properly handle and manage the usage of chemicals in order for Nigerians to be safe from health hazards.
When you talk of environmental monitoring, it's a continuous process. You understand what I'm saying now? It's not that you just organize a workshop for a certain period of time and you stop. You have to be educating them every time, because you see, our people, the moment you stop, they go back to their old doings. And we are not going to fold our arms and say, okay, we had a workshop some time ago, we should stop. We must continue to sensitize them, to let them know the importance, why they need to take some precautions.
There is a law in the state that they have to obtain permits if they are dealing in chemicals. Then when we get to their premises, we want to see how the store is arranged. We have only about 30% compliance because people don't know the effect. I think they are not aware of the effect of their activities on the environment, and hence this workshop.
According to the chairman, Large-Scale Chemicals Dealers Association, Sam Obaleye, chemicals are important for human usage. That is why it is necessary to enlighten Lagosians as to its proper usage.
You see, chemicals is important to life. I can say chemical is life. We all live with chemical every day of our lives. When you sleep, you wake up from bed, the foam is made with PU, which is chemical. When you go to your bedroom, you wash your mouth with toothpaste, which is what? Chemical. You go to your bedroom, you bath with what? Soap, which is what? Chemical. You cream your body with what? Cream or lotion, which is what? Chemical. You go to your sitting room, you sit on what? On foam, on mattress, on seats, which is made of chemical as well. You go to your car, you sit on what? On foam, which is what? Chemical. You go to your office, you sit on what? On foam, which is what? Chemical. Needless to say, what we eat is made of chemicals. Water is purified with chemicals. So everyday life, every human being, we live with chemical. So there are many kinds of chemical. And we need to categorize them. Some are harmful, and they need to be handled properly. And that's the purpose for this kind of workshop.
For participants at the seminar, proper handling of high toxic chemicals is of paramount importance to a healthy society. Anita Fatunji, Core TV News, Lagos.
Well, and that does it for CoreTV News at 7. Many thanks for watching. I am Frank Omalape. Don't forget, join us at 9:45 p.m. for our primetime news. Thanks for watching.